Totals for week 5, total expenses were $2,252 at $1.60 per mile. Total revenue was $3,100 at $2.20 per mile. That brought our net settlement to $847 at 60 cents per mile. Welcome back to Trucking the 7 Seas. This is episode number 85, and in this episode, we're going to go over week 5 of running my own authority. We have a fairly short week this week, mostly because we took a couple of days off, and then after we got back on the road, we did mostly short runs in the Midwest. If you're new to this channel, welcome. I started this channel in order to show exactly what truck drivers make. We started as a company driver, working for Night Transportation, moved on to a lease operator, working for Night Transportation, then an owner-operator, working for Landstar, and now we are an owner-operator, running our own authority. I show all the loads I take, what the revenue is, what the expenses are, and what my net cash flow is, and I compile all this information that I put into a spreadsheet that I share with you at the end of every video. So if this is a topic that interests you, follow the channel. But last episode, we left off in Mesquite, Texas, so we dropped a load in Mesquite, Texas. Then we took a couple of days off to attend the Natalism Conference out in Austin, Texas. So we did that, and then it was a Monday, so we were looking for another load, and I wanted to get back to the Midwest, so I've been primarily running from basically Texas to the Midwest and back and forth like that. So I wanted to get back to the Midwest. So we were looking around, and I ended up finding this load right over here. So I'll put right over there. This load is going from Fort Worth, Texas to Dayton, Ohio. So pretty standard here. On this one though, I did not negotiate this well. I should have gotten more for this. So $16.50 is pretty bad. There was like no deadhead for me, so that was the only good part about this. The $16.50 was piss poor. That was a piss poor negotiation. That was almost as bad as the very first load that I took from Los Angeles to Michigan. That was a bad negotiation. I don't know what I was thinking with that. I think I was just like, I wanted to get a load and get going, I guess. But that was bad. I definitely could have gotten probably a couple hundred more out of that one. It is what it is, though. That's what I booked. So Fort Worth, Texas. So very little deadhead, just only like 45 miles or something like that. But yeah, I didn't do a good job on that one. So whoops. I think I left probably a couple $100 on the table on this load, so whatever. But the good news is we're going to Dayton, Ohio, and Ohio is like probably one of the best markets in the US right now, just generally speaking. The entire state of Ohio is very good from what I've been seeing, so that's good. But yeah, I did not do a good job on this load. But anyways, booked this one, and now we're gonna go from Fort Worth, Texas to Dayton, Ohio. Let's go. Okay, so we dropped that Dayton, Ohio load, and I decided to do a little bit of short haul runs out in the Midwest. This is a very good area to do so because the rates are good. There's plenty of loads just hopping around Ohio to Indiana to Illinois to Michigan. So I decided to give it a shot this week. So I dropped this load on Wednesday, and realized I was going to have difficulty finding a load on Wednesday and then dropping it on Friday and then picking up another load on Friday, like to Texas and back. So if I grabbed a load near Dayton, went to Fort Worth and tried to drop it on Friday and then pick up another load on Friday, it would get a little iffy because of the distances, and I might end up not finding a load Friday that would get me back to the Midwest. So I decided to not do that. So I was trying to find some local loads, and I ended up finding this load right over here. So this one is going from Portland, Indiana to Plymouth, Indiana. The deadhead was a little bit much, I think, for the price. So it's $5.50, which is very good. I mean, without deadhead, it's like $5.50 per mile, but with the deadhead, it goes down to like $2.20, $2.30 per mile. So the deadhead maybe was a little bit too great for this one, considering how short it was. But that's what I ended up doing. So it's going from Portland, Indiana to Plymouth, Indiana. And Plymouth, Indiana is pretty close to Chicago as well. So it's an even better market specifically. Chicago specifically is the best market in the Midwest and maybe the country right now. So I thought that was fine though, because it was going to such a good area. So found this one fairly short. And now it picked and dropped on the same day, or was it the same day? No, it was the next day. So I dropped the Dayton, Ohio load about noon or something like that, and then I picked this one up right afterward, and then it dropped in the morning in Plymouth Thursday morning. So I was able to get it and go and then drop it off early in the morning. So that's what I ended up doing. So I found this load, not too bad, and now we're headed to Plymouth, Indiana. Let's go. Okay, so after that Plymouth, Indiana load, I was again looking for probably another day long, like short load-ish. So looking to run just local in that area. So I dropped that one Thursday morning, and I was looking to just grab one and then drop it Friday morning. And then Friday morning, I was gonna grab a big load from wherever back down to Texas. So that was my plan. So that's what I was looking for, and I ended up finding this load right over here. So this load is going from LaPorte, Indiana to Mishawaka, Indiana, which is very short. It's 37 miles, and I only had like 30 miles of deadhead, and it paid very well. So it paid $4.50. So that's excellent. You know, you're looking at like $12 per mile or something like that, and I guess with the deadhead, okay, it's like $6 per mile or something, but that's fantastic. And it got even better because there were actually 2 of these loads available back to back. So I didn't just haul this load once, I hauled it twice. So picked it up in LaPorte, Indiana, dropped it in Mishawaka, turned right back around, grabbed the exact same load again, delivered it right back in Mishawaka again. So that worked out very nicely for me. Very short. I mean, that was $900 of revenue for like 150 miles of driving. It did take, you know, most of the day just to pick ups and drops and whatnot. But other than that, that was fantastic. So I did that load twice. So we're going from LaPorte, Indiana to Mishawaka to LaPorte to Mishawaka. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so I went ahead and completed those 2 loads. It was technically 2 loads, so from LaPorte to Mishawaka and back and forth. So got done with that second Mishawaka drop, and then by that time it was Friday, and I needed to find a long load to get me through the weekend. So I was looking around, wanted to head back down just to Texas. It's a pretty simple 1,000-mile run, give or take, and that covers the weekend nicely. So I was looking around, and I ended up finding this load right over here. So this one's going from Archibald, Ohio to Arlington, Texas, which is Dallas. A little bit of a deadhead. It was about 110 miles or something like that of deadhead, but it was pretty decent. I mean, 2,000 for this run, not too bad. Deadhead maybe a little bit much, but other than that, it's pretty good. It takes me through the weekend, goes exactly where I want to go, and then I'll be in Dallas on Monday, and Dallas is basically where I like running at this point. Good market, good volume, not too bad. So that's what I ended up doing. However, this load is not going to make the paycheck, so we're going to go ahead and get into the spreadsheet right now. All right, so as discussed in this episode, we're going to go over week 5. So let's do it. For week 5, we did 4 loads. In those 4 loads, we got 1,412 miles, paid a total of $3,100 at $2.20 per mile. Fuel expenses, fueled up one time for 113 gallons at $412 for a total of 29 cents per mile. Maintenance expenses, we had 3 maintenance expenses this week. We did a valve adjustment, we did an oil change, and a tire change on my trailer for a total of $1,498 for $1.06 per mile. Other expenses, tolls $114, OTR factoring $70, scales $14, parking $22, for a total of $220 at 16 cents per mile. Fixed costs, email subscription is $21, DAT load board is $99 for a total of $120 at 9 cents per mile. Totals for week 5, total expenses were $2,252 at $1.60 per mile. Total revenue was $3,100 at $2.20 per mile. That brought our net settlement to $847 at 60 cents per mile. Okay, yeah, so going through everything, as discussed, did 4 loads. Very short on the mileage because I did take a couple of days off, and also Friday was not in this paycheck because I picked up a load on Friday and then went to Texas. That load did not complete. So I did, basically, there's 3 days missing from this paycheck, the 2 days I took off, and then the Friday run, which I didn't make this paycheck. So there's effectively 3 days off this week, but still, $3,100. good rate per mile. I mean, obviously this stuff right here is, you know, very short loads pay very high rate per mile. The revenue is of course pretty low when you do this, so it's a balance between getting the high revenue loads and getting the high rate per mile loads. They both matter, but in this one, you know, I kind of focused on the high rate per mile loads, except for this one right here, which that was a bad load. I did not do a good job on that load. I should have pulled another couple hundred out of the broker. I don't know what I was thinking with that. Not proud of this one. That's the second worst load I've booked, with the exception of the very first one to Michigan. So not good there, but these ones were fine. These ones were good, I think. Very short loads, high rate per mile, good to go. So not too bad. It's just this one right here. That's not good. So other than that though, pretty okay-ish week, just a short week mostly. Fuel expenses, only fueled up one time. Again, there were basically 3 days missing this week, so only needed to fuel up once. $400, about 30 cents per mile, pretty standard there. And then maintenance expenses, I forgot to mention this. Well, I did mention in the last episode, I was going to get a valve adjustment on my truck done. So when I dropped the truck in Dallas, I just took it to a Freightliner and said, hey, do a valve adjustment for me. And they went ahead and did that. And then later on, when I was heading down the road, well, I did a pre-trip inspection and I noticed that one of my trailer tires was basically about to blow. The side walls were basically, the retread was coming off and the retread took some of the sidewall with it. So I realized that that's done. So I had to get a tire change. And while I was at the Lowe's and they were doing the tire change, I had them just swap out the oil as well. I needed it. I was idling the engine a little bit in Vegas in January and February. So decided just to get it swapped out. It was looking a little cruddy. So I did that while they were doing that. And as a result, had a pretty hefty maintenance bill here. Nothing too bad, right? I mean, the valve adjustment and then the oil change and the tire change. I did get a virgin tire put on there, so that's probably what I'm going to do. I don't think I'm going to mess with the retreads on my truck or my trailer at this point. So probably going to just do the virgin tires. So that's what I did. Got that done, but it obviously cost me $1,500, which is pretty significant. $1.06 per mile. But that's where all these maintenance expenses came from, just a valve adjustment, a tire change, and an oil change. So there you go. Oh, and the oil change wasn't a PM. I just had them swap out the oil, and that was basically it. Swap out the oil, get rid of the oil, and grease my fifth wheel and stuff like that. But I didn't have any of the filters replaced because it's only been like 15,000 miles since I actually had a PM done. I just wanted to swap out the oil because of the idling I did in Vegas, basically. So that's about it. But yeah, $1,500. That hurts. Okay, yeah, then other expenses, not much to discuss. I did pay for parking. I've been paying for parking a little bit lately because I've just kind of decided that I'd rather get a little further when I drive and just pay an extra anywhere between $15 and $25 to park the vehicle when I'm done driving for the day. Now, I shower every day, so I don't screw around with that. I like to be clean, and I think that's very important. So I will usually pay for parking at like a Love's, or not a Love's, a Flying J or a TA or whatever if I have to, and then shower at the end of the day. I think that's very important. You see guys just, they don't shower because they smell, and I don't do that. I shower almost every day, and if I have to pay a little bit for parking to, find a truck stop that has a shower, that I'll pay for parking if I need to. So, which has been happening a little bit, about once a week. Not a huge deal, but that's why you guys have been seeing some parking fees, because I'm trying to get a little bit further every day. And also, I shower every day, and I would recommend you shower every day as well. I like to shower at the end of the day, so that way I'm clean when I go to bed. But that's what's going on there. So paid for parking. There's that. Tolls, scales. Yeah, I scaled it. Factoring. I did factor one of these loads. I can't remember which one. And then I had some tolls from Illinois. These are actually these just settled. I think these were when I was actually running in Wisconsin, and I would run through what is it, the 35? Is that it? One of those roads had the 39. So I was running through the 39 through Illinois, and there's a toll road there. So I did that a couple of times, and it looks like the charge has just settled. So, whoops. Okay, fixed costs. I have a custom professional email, so I pay for a professional email. So my email account isn't at gmail.com when I email brokers and whatnot. Looks more professional, so I'm paying for that, and that's the charge right there. And then DET load board came in, $100 for the DET load board. Still paying for this, although I'm not actually using the load board itself. I'm just using C.H. Robinson and TQL's load boards. However, there's a very useful tool in DET, which is the quick rate lookup, which allows you to look up the rates going from one area to another. So when I go from, Dallas to Dayton, Ohio, I know what the approximate rate should be. Now, some of you guys, I mentioned this before, and some of you guys are saying that it's biased towards the brokers, and you very well could be right. The problem is, in light of having no other data available, I'm going to have to, it gives me a ballpark of what the rate should be. Now, if you guys have other tools available, I'm all ears. But for right now, the quick rate lookup on DAT seems to be a decent way of finding out what the rate should be going from one area to another, and there's data behind it. So if you guys got something else, I'm all ears. But really, if there's no data behind it, I'm not going to listen. I want a tool that has data behind it and not just like opinions and whatnot. And this does, the DAT quick rate lookup does have data behind it. It might be a little bit skewed, but in light of having no other data available, that's what I'm going to use. So that's primarily why I'm using this, why I still have the subscription. And then as time moves on, I will get access to more brokers, and then the load board itself will be a lot more handy. So that's what I'm doing, and that's what that charge is. But 120 bucks at 9 cents per mile for the fixed cost there. There you go. Okay, yeah, and then the overalls for week 5, honestly not too bad considering there were basically 3 days missing here, and there's a $1,500 maintenance charge. So all in all, this wasn't too bad. Obviously very short and, not a great week, but, considering there were 3 days off there, I'm pretty okay with that. I wasn't in the red, so that's good. So that's week 5, 800 bucks, not great, but that's where we're at so far. 60 cents per mile, week 5. There you go. All right, so per usual, now I'm going to move on to the totals. So for the new viewers, the totals are completely skewed because if you go all the way to the top of the spreadsheet, scrolling up right now, you will find my startup costs. So this is what it cost me to start my own authority, and it was very expensive. So if you go down, my total startup costs were $18,000. So that is integrated in with the totals down below. So that's what's going on there, and you can just see the total, the charges: $6 grand for insurance, $2,500 for DMV. The trailer down payment was almost $4 grand. That's where most of the stuff is coming from. So 18 grand to start the company, or to start my own authority, I should say, and that's what's going on here. So we're still deep in the red, about 7 grand, but we're chipping away at it, and I think by the end of April I should have it back in the green. So that's good, right? That's good. We're back in the green, hopefully by the end of April. So that's good. But as of right now, there's not much to say. This is all completely skewed and not really worth going over. So what we're going to do, just to do a little thought experiment here, I'm going to go ahead, per usual, delete these startup costs, scroll back down, just to give a better idea of what a weekly paycheck would look like. Now your startup costs absolutely count, but for right now, we're just going to look at it, assuming we did not have any startup costs, just to give you guys a better idea of what a average weeks would look like. Okay, so without the startup costs, we had 10 grand of expenses at 94 cents per mile, and that is my cost per mile. Our revenue would have been $21,000 at $1.85 per mile. That does include deadhead, and our total profit loss would have been $10,000 at 91 cents per mile, and all of these loads are dry van. So that is without the startup costs. And looking at that, that's not great. That's not very good. I was doing about the same at Landstar with significantly less headache. So looking at it right now, some of you guys have been asking me to compare Landstar versus having my own authority. And so far, given what we're seeing here, it looks like Landstar is maybe the better bet. However, this was March running. So I was running in March, and March is a bad month. When things get into the summer, like the higher rates come in the summer, and then right before Christmas and whatnot, when everybody's buying everything. So too early to tell which one's better, Landstar or running my own authority. Right now, I mean, I guess Landstar is better, but it's too early to tell. So we'll see how it goes. In summer, the rates will start getting higher, and then, we'll get a better picture. Some of you guys were asking about that, but my answer to that question is, which is better, Landstar or running your own authority, is it's too early to tell right now. But if I had to make a choice, it would be Landstar, but I don't know yet. There's not enough data. So there's that. Yeah, there's that right there. And yeah, so that's without the startup costs. However, the startup costs absolutely count. So at the moment, we are still down 7 grand. So we're still down 7 grand, and hopefully by the end of the month, I think definitely by the end of the month, the end of April, I'll have this back in the green. So that's where we stand. Okay, and then scrolling down to my averages, I hid a bunch of information here because a lot of it is just irrelevant. A lot of it is just deep in the red because we're still deep in the red. So hit a lot of it, but I wanted to go over a few things, specifically fuel costs. This is accurate to the best of my knowledge. So fuel costs are looking really good, actually, which I found very interesting. So my fuel cost per mile is 37 cents per mile. I am fueling up a lot in Texas and Arkansas and stuff like that, where fuel is cheaper, and I'm trying to avoid fueling up in Indiana and Illinois and stuff like that. Now, I do have to file my IFTA. I will do that either this week or next week, and I might be getting whacked with a pretty high IFTA bill, and I'll put that in here as well. So I don't know yet. We'll see how it goes, but I think I'm going to get whacked with a pretty high IFTA bill if I had to guess, which will affect things. But right now, we're at 37 cents per mile. And recently, I don't know if you've been watching the news, but the price of oil has pretty much cratered along with the stock market, given the tariffs that are happening right now. So that's kind of good, you know. We'll see how the freight market goes, but hey, at least the fuel is going down along with everything else. So yeah, the fuel price in the last 2 days has gone down like 15% or something like that. So that's good. But anyways, can't talk politics on this channel, obviously, but yeah, the fuel prices are about to go way down, so that's good. But even with the fuel prices, the price they're at, we're doing pretty good here, I think. It's saying my average MPG is about 8.84. I think that's a little high now that I'm thinking about it. Last week it was like 8.5 or something like that, but there's not a lot of data, so you know, movements can, you know, a little bit of data can move the data quite a bit. So it's 8.84. I'm not getting 8.84. I think what's probably happening in this one is I probably ended the week on empty or something like that, and then next week it's going to drop back down. I think my MPG is probably somewhere between 8 and 8.5. I'm not 100% sure though. My dashboard is saying one thing, and then my data here says kind of another thing, so I'm still trying to figure it out exactly. But it's somewhere between 8 and 8.5 is my guess. This is too high right now, but even with that, we're doing pretty good on the maintenance or the fuel bills right now, and we won't know for sure how I'm doing until I file my IFTA. So I still got to do that. I'll do that later this month, but that's where we stand right now. Fuel going real good. And then my maintenance costs are also looking pretty solid. And by solid, I mean high, very high. So I just had those two maintenance costs right there, 19 cents per mile. I think my maintenance costs usually are going to drop down to about 10 to 15 cents per mile. So this is slightly high right now. By the end of the month, it'll probably be down closer to 13 cents. But there's that. If I did continue driving like this, I would get 120,000 miles by the end of the year. So I'm averaging 2,300 miles per week. If I kept this up every week until the end of the year, I'd get 120,000 miles, which is pretty standard. So I think we're running okay. Other things, total revenue, 21,000. Total revenue per week is quite low, very low. 4,000 per week is not good. I need to bring that up. This week was definitely a doozy as far as that revenue per week goes, because I took a lot of short loads, which didn't have very high revenue. They were high rate per mile, but low revenue. So there's that. And I also took a couple of days off, so that is pretty bad right now. Need to work on that. My deadhead is not good. 10%, that's too high. I need to drop that down to about 5%, so got to work on that. That deadhead's too high. Not sure why. I've been trying to find loads that are nearby, but you know, I just end up driving like 100 miles or something like that to go find a load. So there's that, but I gotta work on that. That's not very good. And then you can see other information right here, like the amount of days I take off, the number of loads and stuff like that. My average load length is 890 miles, which is fine. About 900 miles, that's fine by me. I'm a long haul trucker, so that's fine. And if I'm running Dallas to the Midwest, well then that's pretty standard there. So I run about 900 miles average load length. So there's that. Okay, yeah, so there's week 5. All things considered, not a terrible week, considering I took basically 3 days where I wasn't driving, or that weren't on the paycheck. Took 2 days off, and then Friday didn't count for this week because it's going to be on next week's paycheck. So all in all, that wasn't too bad. I mean, I had a $1,500 maintenance bill, and I still ended up in the green a little bit. So not too bad. I do believe that next week I'm going to have it's going to be pretty solid, I think. So I'm taking a load down to Dallas right now. Going to drop it. That one paid $2K. I'm going to get out of Dallas and head back to the Midwest. I'm going to do better than the 1650 that I booked this week. So I'll pretty much do the same plan where I'm just Dallas to Midwest, Midwest to Dallas, or Houston or something like that, and then back and forth like that. Those routes are working pretty well. This week I did do the short routes, and they also worked, They're fine as well, but the revenue is kind of low, right? So high rate per mile, but low revenue. It's a balance. I prefer a little bit higher revenue. And these loads, the two markets I'm going to, basically Texas to the Midwest, those are both good markets. So the idea of just sitting there running them back and forth, 1,000-mile loads, you can get the revenue up, and I think they're fine. So that's what I'm going to keep doing. This week I'm going to do it hopefully 3 times, and if I could do it 3 times, my revenue would be close to 6,000, and that's pretty good. Will be 3,000 miles of driving, but I think that's fine. So that's my plan, and I believe, assuming nothing too bad happens in terms of weather or something like that, I should have a pretty good week next week. Hopefully no maintenance issues, and I think it'll be pretty solid. And hopefully in the next 2 weeks, I can get that back in the green. So that's not good. Negative $7,000 right now. So that's just not good. But yeah, that's where we stand right now. Yeah, but that will pretty much do it for this episode. If you guys need a factoring company, I would recommend OTR Factoring. I'm using them currently, and they're pretty solid. Quick pay, usually within a day or 48 hours, given that range. So they're very solid. They do work with basically every major broker out there, so excellent on their end, and I do recommend them. There's a link in the description down below. If you would, please feel free to use that. It helps me out a ton. And if you are interested in this spreadsheet or any of the other spreadsheets I've done in the past, you could find them also in the About section down below. After you find them, just open them up, and you can hit File, Download, and then you can download them to a Microsoft Excel sheet. And then after you download them to the Excel sheet, you are free to use them however you please. But that will do it for this episode. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.